Hello. Again, I'm excited to bring you right here on this channel where we get to discuss all and sundry. And it's a comfortable space for us to have conversation on several issues, conversations that has to do with you, conversations that has to do with me, and basically how it modifies and shapes our orientation, our way of thinking, and possibly, how we go about our daily living. So essentially, basically, anyways, is what we do right here on EstiQ Media website is to touch on various segments of what I say, definitely various segments of our daily living and see how that could spur us in a conversation. Secondly, what we try to do here also is the fact that we know that a lot of people don't have time these days. It's about hustling. It's all about hustling. So we make it a click easy for you. All you need to do is once you go on Estic Media website or you go on YouTube, Spotify, or iTunes. That's Estic Media Podcast on Spotify, on iTunes, on Amazon, as well as on YouTube. It's a click away for you to just, go about what you want to do, and then no hassles, no stress. Everything is just you sit back and listen and enjoy. And if you have any way to contribute to the conversation, then please go ahead. What do I want to talk about today? Really, is I feel that it's a very wide topic. It's a wide range if you want to consider it, and it's not a conversation that we can end today. But it's about the essence of tradition and how it consistently, would I say, modifies and at the same time limits us, especially as Africans. Every community, home, or a small society actually guides themselves by traditions. Tradition is like an identifying factor for any individual, for any community, any race, any culture that dwells on having to maintain his identity for centuries. And so tradition is what helps an individual, a family, and a community maintain their identity because they keep up the continued practices that has sustained them, that has kind of bonded them for centuries over and over. So it transcends, and it has been one identifying factor for every ethnic group across the world, whether we like it or not. Now, in as much as the Western world is trying to break the barrier of tradition because some of these traditions can be quite limiting and doesn't really allow people to do precisely what they want to do just because traditional values do not permit it. So it doesn't mean that it is not a mainstay in most cultures around the world, whether we like it or not. So here is how it works, all right? The existence of tradition is that it creates order for different communities and that has worked out a code of conduct, right? Now, these codes are stipulated, considered sacred and binding by community leaders. Now, there are leaders who implement these code of conducts, these values, these traditional behavior attributes to how things are done, which is peculiar to different societies. It guides how they go about their things. It's always like the saying, when you go to Rome, you behave like the Romans. When you go to Paris, you behave like, those who live in Paris. And that's basically what it is. So traditional values helps to guide people's culture, moral living, and gets to give that particular community or home a sense of order. All right. Now, some people have kind of attributed tradition to moral and religious values, basically. And the idea is that, there are customs. Customs are quite different from traditions, but they go pari passu. They're in tandem, customs and traditions. When you hear people say that, customs are basically, how do I put it? It's almost like it's a way of life, a particular order of a community to doing things. Do you understand? For example, I want to give us a normal example that Nigerians actually do their own stuff when it comes to their customs and traditions. Okay, so let's look at, for example, a particular community. Now, for a community, their tradition is a practice which is passed down through generations, right? And is being observed by the majority of people in that particular society or culture, all right? Meanwhile, custom is not something that transcends, right? Custom is not something that is being passed down, it's short lived. All right, and it's observed only at either the family or individual level. So, for example, I am Yoruba, We have our traditions when it comes to getting married, or when it comes to involving families that you want to get married to, or when it comes to giving birth, when it comes to naming ceremonies. There are traditional practices that have been passed down from generations to generations, identifiable only to the Yoruba tribe. But when it comes to customs, it's a way of living for a particular family. And they say, okay, for example, in as much as we're Yorubas, and this is how it is to do some certain things when a particular family gives birth. Well, just for us in our family, this is how we will do it. We may not exactly do it like the tradition explains, but this is how we do things in our family. So a family cultivates its own custom of doing things. It's just a way of making the family stand out, or guiding that family to stay according to the norms and practices being instituted by the head of the home, which in this instance is the father. I hope we're getting ourselves educated. So, why am I actually talking about tradition? It's a project topic if you want to look at it, because I have been thinking about it, and I'm like, are our traditions actually limiting us? Or are they actually helping us? Are they freeing us? Are they giving us the liberty? Are they liberalizing us? In some instances, it feels like it's limiting. In some instances, it feels like it's liberating. But for more persons, especially in this part of the world, they may say that our traditions are limiting, and that it needs to be a little bit changed or become a little bit liberal. In some cultures, traditions are becoming liberal, all right? They're not as fixated or stifling as they used to be, because times are changing, the world is evolving, people are getting more exposed, people are beginning to cohabitate with other tribes, all the religions, and their orientations are beginning to, be immersed in other people's lives. So you're now realizing that traditions are now getting a little bit neutral or less stifling. But as Africans, a tradition is one of the things that has kept us, would I say, uniquely us, uniquely ourselves, and it helps us maintain active and real relationships with the spiritual world, either with the living, the dead, which comes through sacrifices or offerings and prayers, between that particular community, that individual, and whatever it is that they serve. Tradition has been a constant practice that has kept communities together. All right. So, human beings have a privileged position in the universe. Everything is set to center on them. Human beings are the link between the heavens and the earth, between the visible and invisible. This view influences the way human beings relate to the universe. On the one hand, they strive to maintain harmony between themselves and the invisible universe by observing the moral and religious order. At the same time, humans see the universe in a utilitarian way, from the point of view of what is beneficial or harmful to them. And if we try to look at some of these works, we've had a lot of theologians, we've had a lot of professors in that have to do with ethics, language, tradition, customs, give different purviews on how human beings have to work with their traditions and how their customs have shaped their way of life. And even in terms of, what you call evolving biological evolution. When it comes to evolution, tradition also plays a huge role in that, from the many laws and customs which, sets forms of behavior, regulations, rules, observations, and taboos, which constitutes the moral code and ethics of any given community or society, and they hold it sacred and are believed to either be instituted by God or whatever, being or non-being that is what guides their principles in that particular community. But do these traditions actually help us become more exploratory? Do they give us the kind of ambience that we desire? When it comes to man's innate desire to want to do more, they always say that seeing is attractive, and it's common, it's a normal nature for a human being to want to taste the forbidden fruit. It's happened, that thing that they say don't eat, don't taste, is for your own good, and you're wondering, why are you telling me not to taste that thing? What exactly will I see or know or gain if I should taste that thing? So there is an uncanny attitude on the human angle to want to go have access to that thing that they say do not access. That's annoying curiosity, you may say, and It's basically what it is. For example, you do know about five men who were inside at the, I think, Ocean Gate, and you saw how these billionaires, these rich men, just who wanted to experiment for whatever, to see the Titanic in a deep blue sea, decided to enter a cubicle that literally folded and be imploded. What you would ask yourself, why would these human beings decide to go that route? Why would they decide to go into something despite several warnings, despite the materials that were used to make up that particular, will I call it deep UC cubicle or whatever? You ask yourself, why would they do that? Considering the fact that there were safety regulations that they did not adhere to, but they decided to, just because of that curiosity, despite knowing that there could be something dreadful. And so you're asking yourself, are traditions meant to guide us from the unforeseeable circumstance of either damaging or killing or completely cutting off? Or is tradition limiting us from actually exploring the unexplorable in the universe? And that's the conversation I want to have. And I don't know how tradition has guided you. I don't know how it has kept you afloat. I don't know in what way it has modified you. I don't know in what way it has helped in your orientation of your background and your upbringing. But how much more do you think tradition has helped you? And do you think that there are many aspects through which traditions can be modified to work for us at this time and age? Do we still observe these traditions though? Some people feel that in this part of the world, traditions are quite limited. And some persons feel that we don't think traditions exist anymore with how liberal things have become, too liberal, possibly with the infusion of technology and the current use of the internet and the social media and what it's used for when it comes to exposure and all of that. Some people feel that traditions are no longer being observed, possibly because of the jet age or the new generation age, the Gen Z age, who do not take cognizance of these supposed traditions and values. Now, these generation of Gen Zs may say, oh, these stifling traditions are inhibitive, while some others will say they are not inhibiting, they are actually there to guide you not to do things in excess. But my question to you is, do you think that our traditional values have actually limited us? Or has it guided us and tried to give us that sense of sanity that we crave? Or has it inhibited us from not exploring those hidden desires that we love to explore? That if we were in a society that allows us to unleash those desires, that we wouldn't gladly want to get into it. Yes, it's something to think about, actually. I want to hear what you think. It's something to literally think about. I want to know what you think about it. If you're listening to this podcast at this moment, I want to know what you think about it. Do traditions limit us? Do they guide us, or do they inhibit us from having to explore those desires of us that we would love to explore if we're given the opportunities to? There are so many things and in the world, and there are so many people in this world, in this part of the world, actually, that are being inhibited by tradition. It's not like they do not love some certain things, but just because tradition will not let you, or society with tradition will criticize you, so they rather not, they just stay within the ambit of the tradition and be like every other person and just do life the way society has kind of over time instructed that life should go, right? Exactly. So, what's your thoughts on that? I actually want you to know, but I know that I want you to know something, that traditions include laws, they include moral codes and ethics of a given community, they include regulations which forms human behavior, and they also include observances and, kind of what you would consider to be taboo. The idea is to streamline the society so people do not go excess in their cannibalistic nature. Whether we like it or not, human beings can be quite cannibalistic. So the idea is to contain that cannibalism and allow for a society that is more accommodating, a society that is neutral, a society that actually makes human beings different from primates. Let's just use that word. So that's it. I want to know what you think. All right. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, and I would like to know exactly what your thought is on this podcast. My name is Esther Machuku, and you know how we like to do it. Mhm. Have yourself an amazing day.